Before you judge me, let me explain what happened. It was supposed to be a celebration, 3 generations living together with laughter echoing through the kitchen. But when my son pulled me aside and said, "You will sign the deed today," I told him no, so he slapped me right there in front of everyone. The room fell silent. I did not cry or scream. I turned away, walked out, and made a quiet phone call. By the time dessert was served, his accounts were frozen. The house was no longer in his name. And what happened afterward? Let's just say he never raised a hand against me again. Before I continue, tell us where you are watching from. For 30 years, I taught second graders at Jefferson Elementary School. Every morning I arrived at 7 o'clock sharp, prepared my lessons with cold coffee and salty crackers, and waited for my little ones to come in with their oversized backpacks and toothless smiles. Teaching did not pay well, but I saved every extra cent in a tea tin behind the cookbooks for hard times, even though hard times had been the norm ever since Harold passed away. Dean was only 12 years old when he lost his father. I watched him become the man of the house way too soon, carrying responsibilities that were not meant for him. Maybe that is why I kept helping him, even after he started his own family. The quiet payments of my mortgage, Mia's tuition fees, the loans he never paid back. Every check I wrote was both an expression of love and a source of anxiety. Fear that he might drift away just as he had done with so many other things. Yet the visits became less frequent and the phone calls shorter. When he spoke of my house, which he called our house, his eyes would fill with impatience, disguised as worry. "It is too big for you, Mom. What if you fall or something happens?" But deep down, I knew what he truly thought. I saw it in the way Lisa looked at my furniture as if she was already imagining the changes she would make. This morning, I baked his favorite birthday cake, chocolate with peanut butter frosting, the same one I used to make when he was a child waking from nightmares. My hands, now marked with age spots, still remembered every ingredient and every step. 74 years merit a celebration, do they not? By midday, the house was filled with familiar voices. Mia arrived first, my 17-year-old granddaughter with sparkling eyes and a heartfelt embrace, the only one that felt genuine. Dean and Lisa came later, wearing the strained smiles of those fulfilling an obligation. Janine, my neighbor, brought her famous cinnamon rolls, and for a moment, everything felt like it used to. Dinner unfolded with forced conversations about Dean's work, Mia's college plans, and Lisa's new haircut. I smiled, nodded, and poured more wine. I pretended not to notice how Dean kept glancing toward my study, where I stored my important documents. After dinner, while everyone was helping to clear the plates, Dean approached me in the kitchen. His voice was low, almost secretive. "Mom, we need to talk now," I replied. "No, Dean, we have guests," he said. "It's about the house." His hand rested on my arm, steady but not threatening yet. "Lisa and I have been talking. This house is too much for you. And we need stability." I felt the air thicken around me. In the dining room, I heard Mia's laughter blending with Janine's voice. Normal, familiar sounds, the kind a happy family makes. I said, "Dean, we have already discussed this." He answered, "No, Mom, not really." His tone was hardening. "Look, I know this is tough, but you need to be practical. The house should be in our name anyway for the family's security." I insisted. "This is my house, Dean." He replied, "Technically, yes, but let's be honest. Who will maintain it when you no longer can? Who will pay for repairs? The taxes." His words hit me like small stabs, not because he was cruel. Dean was rarely intentionally harsh, but because they exposed a truth I had been avoiding. To him, I was no longer his mother. I had become a problem to solve, an obstacle to move aside. "I have kept this house for 40 years, Dean, since before you were born." "Mom, please. Do you really think this makes sense? The deed should be in my name, or at least both of ours. That is what Dad would have wanted. Mentioning Harold was the final straw. My husband, who had worked 2 jobs to buy this house, who had planted every rose in the front garden, who had died far too young, leaving me with a mortgage and a child to raise. What would Harold have wanted? Your father wanted this house to be our home, Dean, not just a business deal. Dean glanced toward the dining room, where Lisa was clearly pretending not to hear our discussion. When he looked back at me, there was something different in his eyes, a hardness I had never seen before. Mom, I need to be honest with you. Lisa and I have made sacrifices for this family. We have been patient, but you need to face your reality. My reality is that you are getting older. You will need care, and that care costs money. Money we could have if this house was in the right hands. Silence fell among us like a crack spreading across ice. In the dining room, voices had stopped. Mia appeared in the kitchen doorway holding a plate and wearing a worried look. "Grandma, is everything okay?" "Everything is fine, dear," I lied softly. "We were just talking about boring adult stuff." Dean waited until Mia left before continuing, but his voice was now sharper, more cutting. "Mia, Mom, you can handle this either peacefully or forcefully, but it will happen one way or another. Are you threatening me, Dean? I'm just being straightforward. Lisa has been searching for nursing homes, good ones where you would feel comfortable and safe, but those places cost money, and the value of this house is significant. Dean, please. I cannot stop, Mom, not when you are acting so selfishly." The word hit me like a cold bucket of water. Selfish. After 30 years of teaching my own children and others, after every silent paycheck, every unpaid loan, every time I prioritized your needs above mine, I will not sign anything, Dean. Yes, you will. And then it happened. His hand rose, not as a clenched fist, but open and flat, and the palm met my cheek with a sharp slap that echoed throughout the kitchen. The strike was not particularly strong, but the shock was complete. In 74 years of life, no one had ever hit me, not even Harold in his worst moments of frustration. The silence that followed was deafening. Mia dropped the plate she was holding. Lisa froze in the doorway. Janine, who had been putting away the cinnamon rolls, turned around with her mouth open. But I did not move. I did not cry or shout. I just stood there feeling the burn on my cheek and staring at you, my son. This 45-year-old man had just struck his mother on her birthday with a clarity I had not felt in years. "Mia," I said, with a calm voice without taking my eyes off Dean, "could you please escort your father to the door? I believe the celebration has come to an end." Dean opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. Lisa started stammering a half-hearted apology, but I had already turned away and was walking toward my office. I closed the door behind me and headed straight to Harold's desk, to the bottom right drawer behind old receipts and stored Christmas cards. Inside was my small address book. My fingers trembled slightly as I flipped through the pages until I found the name I needed. Patrick Monroe, lawyer. Through the closed door, I heard raised voices, heavy footsteps, and finally the sound of the front door shutting. But I was already dialing the number, listening to the ringtone, preparing for the conversation that would change everything. "Patrick," I said when he answered, "this is Eleanor Hestons. I need to see you tomorrow morning. It's about the house, and that is how everything began." Telling and preparing this story took us a long time, so if you are enjoying it, please subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now let us return to the story. The phone was silent after Patrick hung up, but his words still echoed in my ear. "I will see you tomorrow at 9, Eleanor. And Eleanor, I am glad you finally called." Finally. As if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I had been waiting for this call for years, maybe even longer than I realized. I stayed seated at Harold's desk well into the night, with documents scattered before me like pieces of a puzzle I had long avoided putting together. The original deed to the house was yellowed with age, but still legally valid. Bank statements detailed every transfer, every loan that was never repaid. There were the bills from Mia's university that I had quietly paid, receipts for roof repairs at Dean's house, the repairs to his car engine, his family vacations, totaling $37 million over the past 3 years, nearly half of my lifetime savings. The burning sensation on my cheek had faded, but the memory remained sharp like a photograph. Mia's shocked expression, Lisa and Dean's staged surprise. Dean standing there with his hand still raised, as if he could not believe what he had just done. But I could believe it. That was the saddest part. I had noticed the signs for months, growing impatience, questions about my finances, the way he talked about the house as if it already belonged to him. This was not a loss of control. It was the inevitable outcome of years of feeling entitled to my life. By 8:30 the next morning, I was already waiting in Patrick Monroe's small downtown office. The place smelled of old books and strong coffee exactly as I remembered. It was the time when Harold and I came here to prepare our wills so many years ago. Patrick had aged gracefully with silver hair and fine lines that revealed decades of smiling at clients, yet his eyes remained as sharp as ever. As I entered, he stood up right away from his desk and approached me with a worried look. "Eleanor," he said while holding my hands in his, "are you okay? You sound upset tonight." "I am fine, Patrick, but I need your help." "Of course, please sit down. Coffee?" I accepted the coffee, and we settled into the leather chairs facing his desk. Patrick waited patiently as I searched for the right words. "Patrick, I need to know exactly what my legal rights are concerning my house, and I want to understand what options I have to protect myself." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Protect yourself from what?" I explained everything: the stroke, the constant pressure, the subtle threats involving care homes and mental fitness. Patrick listened quietly without interrupting, occasionally jotting down notes in his yellow pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply. "Eleanor, first let me be clear. You hold full legal rights to your property. The house is entirely under your name, with 5 co-owners and no outstanding mortgage. Dean has no legal claim to it unless you willingly grant him any." I felt a stress I hadn't noticed before ease off my shoulders. "Secondly," Patrick continued, "what you are describing about financial pressure and coercion could be considered elder abuse. The strike certainly qualifies. We have legal options if you want to pursue them." "I do not want a public scandal," Patrick said. "I just want to regain control." Patrick smiled for the first time since he had arrived. "So, let us talk about economic power. Do you still have independent access to all your bank accounts?" "Yes, Dean has my information for the automatic transfers I've been making, but he does not have direct access." "Perfect. First step, we cancel all automatic transfers immediately. Second step, we change your passwords and security codes. Third step, we review your will." Patrick pulled out a thick folder from his filing cabinet. "Here's a copy of your current will. Let me refresh my memory. Yes. Currently, Dean inherits the house and 70% of your assets, with the remaining 30% divided between Mia, and there was a donation to the public library." "Yes." "Do you want to make changes?" The question lingered between us. I knew once I said yes, there would be no turning back. Dean would become my son, but no longer my heir. "Yes," I finally said. "I want to make changes." Patrick smiled again, this time with something that looked like pride. "Very well. Now let us discuss the details." By noon, we had outlined a complete plan. Patrick called my bank from his office with me nearby. I immediately canceled all the automatic transfers and changed every one of my security codes. Then I set up a new security question that only I would know the answer to. "How much money were you transferring each month?" Patrick inquired as he filled out the forms. $600 for the mortgage, $300 for Mia's expenses, and $300 more for miscellaneous costs." Patrick whistled softly. For a year, and over 3 years. Eleanor, do you know what that adds up to? I already knew, but hearing it out loud made me feel physically ill. I had been funding Dean's lifestyle with money I had carefully saved penny by penny through decades of teaching. Now Patrick took out some new forms. Let's talk about the will. Do you have a clear plan for how you want your assets divided? I had been mulling this over all night. The house will go to Mia, but not until she turns 25. Until then, she can live there if she wants, but is not allowed to sell it. I want her to finish college first. The smart investments and the rest of your assets should be split 50% to Mia, 30% to the Jefferson School Scholarship Fund, and 20% to the public library. Dean, ... I paused, feeling the weight of those words. Dean receives nothing. Patrick nodded without any sign of surprise. Would you like to include an explanatory clause explaining why you made this decision? Nobody knows the reason. All right, this will take a few days to prepare. I may not have everything fully prepared, but I can have a draft ready for your review by tomorrow afternoon. We got up to leave, but Patrick stopped me with a hand on my arm. Eleanor, there is something else you should think about. A restraining order. Do you believe it is necessary? I think it is wise. A man who slaps his 74-year-old mother over money might resort to other actions once he realizes his income source is cut off. The image disturbed me more than I wanted to admit. Let me consider it. Of course, but in the meantime, do you have someone who can stay with you or a place to go? I will be fine, Patrick. I have good neighbors. That afternoon, while driving back home, I stopped by the First National Bank. Margaret Patterson, the manager I had known for years, greeted me with her usual professional smile. Mrs. Hastings, how can I assist you today? Margaret, I need to review all the transfers I have made over the past 3 years, and I want to ensure that all automatic transfers have been canceled. Margaret typed on her computer, frowning as she scanned the screens. Yes, ma'am, I see the automatic transfers were canceled this morning, and here is your transfer history. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh my God, Eleanor, are you all right? The figures on the screen told the whole story. Not only the 100 monthly transfers, but transfers. Additional funds of $500 reserved for a car emergency, $1,000 for unforeseen home repairs, and $2,000 for medical expenses, which I now realized had never truly been medical costs. At this moment, I told Margaret, I am fine now, but I need you to place a note on my account. Any attempt to access my information or make transfers must have my personal approval with identification present. No exceptions. Naturally, I wondered if there was a security issue I should be aware of. I thought about telling Dean, but chose to keep things straightforward. My main goal was to ensure that my finances remained entirely under my control. Margaret nodded with understanding and said, I completely understand. We've seen several similar incidents lately. Elderly individuals discovering that relatives have been taking advantage of them. A polite way of saying, stealing. When I arrived home, the atmosphere felt different, quieter, yet somehow more mine. I headed straight to my study and pulled out my checkbook. Over the past 3 years, I had sporadically donated modest amounts to various charities, a little here, a little there, because Dean always made me feel guilty for spending money. Now, I wrote a check for $500 to the city's Literacy Foundation, another for $200 to the local animal shelter, and a third for $200 to Jefferson's school lunch program. Small acts of kindness that felt truly meaningful. I had been denied them for years. As I was sealing the envelopes, the phone rang. The caller ID showed Dean's number. I let it ring. It rang again 10 minutes later. And once more after that, I finally picked up, Hello, Dean. Mom, thank God, I've been trying to call you all day. Listen, about last night, we both said things we did not mean. I was stressed. You were tired. I did not say anything, Dean. You were the one who spoke and who hit. An awkward silence followed. I know I lost my temper and I am sorry. Truly, I am sorry. But Mom, we still need to talk about the house situation. It is important. There is nothing more to discuss. Dean, what do you mean? I could have been harsh. I could have told her about the canceled transfers, the New Testament, everything I had set in motion, but I decided to let her find out on her own. I want to say that I am tired of this conversation, and especially tired of feeling pressured in my own home. Mom, please, let us be adults here. Lisa and I have been talking, and we thought maybe we could find a compromise. What if we put the house in both our names? You keep your right to live here, but we have the security of knowing that no, Odin, no. No to everything. No more arguments. No more pressure. No more. I have made my decision. I hung up the phone and unplugged it from the wall. Through the window of my studio, I spotted Janine watering her flowers in the front garden. I put on a sweater and stepped outside to join her. It was time to begin mending the relationships that truly mattered. I called out to Janine from my porch. Would you like to come in for some tea? I have a lot to discuss with you. Instantly, Janine dropped the hose and walked toward my house, showing a caring, motherly concern I had not seen directed at me for many years. Eleanor, dear, how are you? Last night was good. It was awful, I replied. I'm fine, I assured her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, it was the truth. Yet I needed to share some things and ask for a few favors. As I brewed the tea, I began to reveal to Janine the years filled with financial manipulation, the subtle threats, and how I had become like a prisoner in my own home. While speaking, a crucial realization dawned on me. I was not isolated. I had allies, options, and for the first time in many years, I possessed power. The power to say no, and even more importantly, the power to take action accordingly. Janine and I settled in my living room with steaming cups of tea, sharing a comfortable silence broken only by the ticking of Harold's wall clock. After explaining everything, the money transfers, the meeting with Patrick, the changes I had set in motion, Janine leaned back in her chair, a look blending indignation mixed with a sense of relief. Elor, dear, she finally said, setting her cup on the table with a faint clink. I have been waiting for years to hear these words. What do you mean? Janine sighed deeply. I have lived next to you for 12 years. I have seen Dean show up whenever he needed something. I have noticed your car sitting in the garage for weeks because you lent him money to fix his. I have looked at Mia's bills arriving in your mailbox, never theirs. I stayed silent, absorbing the reality that my situation had been glaringly obvious to someone else. But I never spoke up because, well, it was not my place, and you always seemed so sure it was the right thing. You always had an explanation. It's only until Dean is settled, or Mia needs stability, or this is what family does. But what did I really think? Janine looked me straight in the eyes. I thought they were using you and that you knew it, but you were too afraid to do anything about it. Her words stung because they were true. I had known on some deep level that the situation was abnormal, but I preferred the illusion of being needed rather than the reality of being taken advantage of. Yet last night, Janine continued, when I saw that man's face after he hit you, there was something in your eyes I hadn't seen in years. You clearly saw who he really was. I nodded slowly. Yes, I saw it. So, what do you need from me? The question caught me completely off guard. Over the past several years, I had grown so used to being the one who gave, who solved problems, who had the resources that I had forgotten what it felt like to receive genuine support. Honestly, Janine, I just need you to understand what is happening in case Dean reacts badly when he realizes what I have done. Are you worried about your safety? The question lingered in the air like an ominous storm cloud. I do not know. I never thought he would hit me, but he did, so now I am unsure what to think. Janine leaned forward and took my hand gently in hers. Eleanor, you have my number. If anything happens, anything at all, call me. And if for some reason you cannot call, I keep my phone on all night. Any strange noise, anything that feels off, I will call the police immediately." Tears pricked my eyes. When was the last time someone had offered to protect me? "Thank you," I whispered. "Do not give up yet. This is just the beginning." Janine was right. Over the next few days, I could sense the first cracks forming in Dean's carefully built world. On Wednesday morning, while watering my roses, I saw Lisa leave her house looking tense, speaking heatedly on the phone. "I do not understand how it could have bounced," I overheard her say as she walked towards her car. "The money is always there on the 15th. That Thursday." Mia showed up at my door right after school. She looked exhausted and worried, more mature than a 17-year-old should appear. "Grandma, can I talk to you?" "Of course, dear. Tea or hot chocolate?" "Hot chocolate, please." We settled in the kitchen, the very same kitchen where Dean had struck me just 5 days earlier. Mia nervously stirred her chocolate, avoiding my eyes. "Grandma, things at home feel strange." "Strange? How?" "Mom and Dad have been arguing a lot about money. Mom says some bills bounced, and Dad blames her for poor management. But I overheard Mom on the phone with Grandma Lisa last night saying something about you cutting off the funds." My heart tightened. Mia should not be caught in the middle of this. How are you feeling about everything? Finally, Mia looked at me, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I am confused, and I am angry, too. Angry with who? With Dad, for what he did to you. I've been thinking about it all these days and cannot stop seeing his face when he hit you. He did not seem shocked or regretful. It looked like he had wanted to do it for a long time." Mia's words confirmed something I had been trying not to admit to myself. Dean had not lost control. He had shown who he really was. "Mia, have you spoken to your parents about your feelings?" "I tried, but Dad says I do not understand the situation, that it is me who is being unreasonable and Mama." Mia hesitated as if contemplating how much to reveal. "Mama says you have too much money for one person and that it is selfish not to share it with the family." I felt a wave of nausea. Lisa had been weaving this story for years, portraying me as the greedy villain clinging to fortunes I did not deserve. "Mia, do you realize how much money I have been sending your family every month?" "No, every month for more than 3 years." Mia remained silent, calculating the figures. "That is more than $10,000, she said at last. "Yes, and they never told you. This is not money inherited or easily earned. It is money I saved working as a teacher for 30 years, living simply, forgoing small luxuries to assist when needed." Mia stayed quiet for a long moment, staring at her hot chocolate. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but certain. "Grandma, can I stay here tonight? I do not want to go home yet." "Of course, dear. You are always welcome here." That night, after Mia went to sleep in the guest room, my phone rang. It was Dean. "Mama, I need to talk to you. Something is wrong with the bank accounts." "What kind of problem?" "The mortgage payment bounced. Also Lisa's car payment and the credit card bill. But I do not understand why. You have always... we have never had this problem before." His voice carried a tone I had not heard in many years. Genuine vulnerability. For a moment, I felt the usual urge to save him, to make everything okay again. But then, I recalled the sound of his palm against my cheek. "Dean, I am no longer making automatic transfers." Silence. Then he asked, "What do you mean exactly?" I replied, "I mean exactly what I said. I have stopped all automatic transfers to your account." "But why, Mom? We rely on that money. Our entire budget depends on your funds." "Yes, I understand that now. It is not that we depend on you. It is that we are a family and families help each other." "When was the last time you helped me, Dean?" Another long pause. That is different. You do not need help. What I needed was for you not to hit me in my own kitchen. But that never happened. Mom, I already told you I'm sorry for that. It was a moment of stress, but you cannot punish the whole family for a mistake I made. A mistake like spilling coffee on the table instead of attacking your mother. I am not punishing anyone, Dean. I am protecting my finances, protecting who your mother is. You are my son, who hit me because I refused to sign over my house. That is not fair. You are twisting everything. His voice rose to a shout, and I could hear Lisa in the background telling him to calm down, but Dean was beyond calm. Mom, this is ridiculous. I can understand. I understand that you are upset, but this is going too far. Mia has upcoming university expenses. We have the mortgage, car payments, and medical bills to cover, so it would be best if you found a way to pay them. With what money? My job in real estate barely covers the essential costs. You know this. You always have. That is why you have been helping us. No, Dean, I have not been helping you. You have been subsidizing us. There is a significant difference. That is the same thing. No, it is not. Helping is a temporary act you do when someone faces a crisis. Subsidizing creates ongoing dependence and allows someone to control you because you rely on their money. It is not help at all. It is blackmail. I could hear his heavy breathing through the phone. When he spoke again, his voice was cold. All right, Mom, I understand. Do you want to play games? We can play games too, but remember that Mia is caught in the middle of this. Are you threatening your own daughter? I am not threatening anyone. I am just pointing out that actions have consequences. If you want to be selfish with your money, fine, but do not expect Mia's university to be paid for. Do not expect us to visit you during the holidays. Do not expect anything. I hung up the phone. 10 minutes later, Mia appeared at the door of my studio in pajamas with red, tear-streaked eyes. Grandma, can I stay here permanently? I opened my arms, and she ran into them, crying on my shoulder. As I comforted her, I could hear through the walls the distant sound of a car door slamming shut with force at the neighboring house's entrance. The collapse had officially begun, yet as I held my granddaughter, I realized that maybe, just maybe, something better was starting as well. That violent car door slam turned out to be the start of 3 days of silence. Neither Dean nor Lisa tried to reach out to me, which was both a relief and a warning. From my experience, Dean only kept quiet when he was scheming something. Mia settled into the guest room as if she had always belonged there. Early the next morning, I found her in the kitchen at 6:30, already dressed for school and making coffee for both of us. "Good morning, Grandma," she said with a smile I had not seen in months. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well, dear. And you?" "Better than I have in weeks." She paused as she poured coffee into my favorite cup, the blue one with tiny flowers Harold had given me on our 20th anniversary. It felt strange, but somehow this house seemed more like a home than my own. Her words broke my heart, but also gave me hope. Perhaps something good could emerge from this mess after all. That afternoon, while Mia worked on her homework at the dining table, Patrick Monroy arrived carrying a thick folder under his arm. "Eleanor, I have good news," he said as we settled into the living room. "Your new will is ready for signature, and I have prepared some additional papers that I believe you will want to look over." Mia looked up from her books. "Can I stay, or do you need privacy?" Patrick glanced at me with curiosity. I had mentioned Mia during our phone call that morning, explaining that my granddaughter had temporarily moved in with me after seeing the true nature of her father. "Mia can stay," I said. "This affects her as well." Patrick took out the documents and laid them out on the coffee table. "The first document is your new will. As we discussed, the house will go to Mia when she turns 25, with the right to live there from 18 if she is studying. 50% of your other assets will also go to Mia, 30% to the scholarship fund, and 20% to the library. Mia set down her pencil and stared at us with wide eyes. Grandma, you don't have to. Yes, I must, dear. This house should stay in the family, but in the hands of someone who truly understands what it means. Patrick continued. The second document is an educational trust for Mia. Eleanor, you have established a fund that will fully cover her college and graduate education, should she choose to continue. I could see tears forming in Mia's eyes. Grandma, this is too much. No, it isn't. This is exactly right. Patrick kept pulling out papers. The third document is a directive. Regarding medical care, it has been updated. You have named Samaya as your main representative for medical decisions once you turn 18, and I am listed as the secondary contact. What about Dean? Mia asked softly. Patrick and I exchanged glances. Dean no longer holds any legal rights concerning my medical or financial decisions, I said quietly. That authority has been revoked. Mia nodded slowly, absorbing the full weight of what was happening. Her father had not only lost his inheritance, but he had also lost any legal control over my life. And the fourth, I asked Patrick. The fourth document is a preliminary restraining order. After you told me about last night's threatening calls, I prepared this just in case. I took the paper and read it carefully. It forbids Dean from coming near my home, contacting me directly, or attempting to access my finances or properties in any way. Do you really think this is necessary? Eleanor, a man who physically abused his mother for money and then threatened her when that money stopped. He is someone who can escalate. I prefer to have the paperwork ready and not need it than to need it and not have it. I looked at Mia, who had returned to her work but was clearly absorbing every word. What do you think, sweetheart? Mia put down her pencil and looked me straight in the eyes. Grandma, Dad has changed a lot in recent years. He has become angrier, especially when he talks. The money from this household. And after what happened on your birthday, he stopped as if he was trying to decide how much to reveal. I think Patrick is right. It is better to be ready. I signed every document. Each signature felt like a step away from the woman I used to be. The mother who always saved everyone, always forgave, always put her son's needs before her own. And every signature felt like a step toward the woman I was meant to become. Bureau Sacer. On Friday afternoon, Lisa showed up at my door. She came alone, which was wise on her part. After everything that had happened, I doubt I would have opened the door if she had been with her. Eleanor, can we talk? I let her in, but did not invite her to sit in the living room. We stood in the hallway, keeping the conversation purposely uncomfortable. Where is Mia? She asked, looking around as if she expected to find her daughter hiding somewhere. She has a history project in the library. Eleanor, this has to stop. What has to stop? This revenge, this punishment for the entire family because of something Dean did during a moment of stress. There it was again. A moment of stress as if hitting a 74-year-old woman was a reasonable reaction to everyday pressure. I am not seeking revenge, Lisa. I am protecting my assets from your own family, from people who apparently feel entitled. Lisa shifted her approach, softening her tone. Eleanor, I understand that you are upset. You have every right to feel that way, but Dean is shattered by what happened. He has not eaten properly for days and barely sleeps. Perhaps you should have considered those consequences before hitting me. It was a moment of madness. I was worried about the safety of the family, about Mia's future. Hitting me guarantees Mia's future. Lisa sighed, clearly frustrated that her usual manipulations were failing. Eleanor, let's be realistic. This house is too big for you. You are 74 years old. What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency? Dean and I could help you if you owned the house, if we were partners in caring for the family. Lisa, I have a question for you. Throughout all these years, you have been sending money to your family. Have you ever thanked me?" The question caught her off guard. "Of course we have. We have always been grateful." "No, you were never grateful. You were condescending. Every time I sent money, Dean acted as though he was doing me a favor by accepting it, as if he was saving me from the burden of having too much money." Lisa opened her mouth to protest, but I went on. "And you, Lisa, every time you came here, you looked at my furniture, my decorations, my clothes with that little smile that said you believed all of this should be yours. To be yours. It felt unfair that an elderly woman possessed these things when a young family needed them more. That is not true, is it? How many times have you commented on how outdated my decor is? How many times have you suggested I should simplify my life? How often have you told me this house needs fresh energy?" Lisa stayed silent. Finally, without any prepared answers, "Lisa, for 3 years I have paid $600 monthly for her mortgage. That is $600. Do you know how many times Dean mentioned those payments when talking to others? 0. Why would admitting that his 74-year-old mother was covering his mortgage hurt his masculine pride? Eleanor, please. And you, Lisa, do you recall what you told me when I worried about money? That I shouldn't be so materialistic, that money cannot be taken to the grave, that family is more important than possessions. But you know what? You were right about one thing. Money cannot be taken to the grave, but it can be given to people who truly appreciate it, who understand the sacrifice it took to save it." Lisa looked at me with something that finally seemed like genuine recognition. "Eleanor, what do you want us to do? Beg for your forgiveness on our knees? Publicly acknowledge everything you have done for us? I want nothing from you, Lisa. That is the difference between us. You have always wanted something from me. I no longer want anything from you. And Mia, you are going to use our daughter to punish us." Mia made her own choice. She witnessed what her father did to me and decided she did not want to belong to a family that behaves like that. She is still a teenager. She might not grasp all the complexities, but she understands clearly. She knows the difference between love and manipulation, respect and exploitation, gratitude and expectation. Lisa walked towards the door but stopped and turned around. "Harold, this is not going to end well for anyone." "It already ended, Lisa," I replied. "It ended the moment Dean decided it was acceptable to hit me." After she left, I sat in my favorite chair in the living room and looked out the window toward the garden that Harold and I had planted together so many years ago. The roses were blooming in shades of pink, white, red, and deep crimson, forming a colorful carpet against the green grass. For the first time in years, the garden felt entirely mine. When Mia came home from the library that evening, she found me preparing 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "How was your day?" I asked, as she hung her backpack on the hook by the door. That hook had been installed by Harold specially for Mia's visits when she was little. "Your mother came to speak with me." Mia tensed up. What did she want? Did she hope to return things to how they were before? What did you tell her? I said there was no going back now. Mia nodded slowly, taking her cup of hot chocolate. "Grandma, do you regret changing everything? Cutting ties, the money, or finally standing up for myself?" "No, darling. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." That night, while Mia was doing her homework and I was sitting in the living room reading, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Eleanor Hastings speaking. "Yes, this is Sergeant Rodriguez from the police department. We received a report that someone tried to break into your property tonight. Are you all right?" My blood ran cold. "I'm fine." "What kind of attempt was it?" "A neighbor saw a man trying to open the windows on the east side of your house. When our officer arrived, the person had already left, but we found signs that someone had been lurking around." I looked at Mia, who had raised her eyes from her books with a worried expression. "Do you have any description of the man? Middle-aged, around 40, brown hair, driving a silver pickup truck?" Does that sound familiar, Dean? Of course it was Dean. Yes, I said, he is my son. The words felt strange on my tongue. After 45 years of protecting Dean, making excuses for him, covering his mistakes, admitting to the police that he had been sneaking around my house, felt like crossing a boundary I never thought I would. Mrs. Hastings, have you had previous problems with your son? I glanced at Mia, who had closed her books and was staring at me with wide eyes. How much should I say? How much was I ready to hear? We have had some disagreements. Recently, of what kind? Financial matters and ownership of my house. I see. Has there been any violent incident? The question lingered like smoke in the air. Mia stood up from the table and walked toward me, stopping close enough for me to feel her quiet support. Yes, he hit me a week ago. Did you report the incident? No. Would you like to report it now? I closed my eyes. Once I said yes, there would be no turning back. Dean would not just be my son who made a mistake. He would be a man with a police report for domestic violence. But then I remembered his words on the phone. Actions have consequences. Yes, I said, I want to report it. Sergeant Rodriguez arrived 1 hour later with a younger female officer. They sat in my living room taking notes while I described the birthday incident in detail. Mia stayed here beside me, occasionally squeezing my hand when the story got hard. Were there witnesses to the event? The officer asked. Yes, my granddaughter Mia, my daughter-in-law Lisa, and my neighbor Janine Roy. Did you seek medical attention after the blow? I named it, but said the hit did not cause significant physical harm. Have there been other incidents of violence or threats? I told them about the phone calls, subtle threats regarding nursing homes, and now the attempt to enter my house. Sergeant Rodriguez closed his notebook. Mrs. Hastings, based on what you have told me. He shared this, and I strongly advise that he file a formal restraining order. We will also discuss the incident from tonight with his son. What does that mean exactly? It means we are going to his house right now to explain that trespassing on private property is a crime, and any unwanted contact with you is considered harassment. If he breaks any of these rules, he will be arrested. After the police left, Mia and I sat quietly for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Grandma, do you really think Dad would have tried to come in? I do not know, dear. A week ago, I would have said he would never hit me, but he did. I am scared. Her words broke my heart. A 17-year-old girl should never be afraid of her own father. Mia, do you want to call someone? Maybe your friend Sarah, or would you prefer to call your maternal grandparents? No, I want to stay with you. We can just secure all the doors and windows. We spent the next hour checking every entrance to the house, ensuring every lock was fastened. While doing so, I realized how vulnerable I had become living alone. The house that once felt like a safe haven now seemed exposed. Neither of us slept well that night. The next morning at 9, Dean showed up at my door. He did not ring the bell or knock politely. He simply opened the front door. The door had been left unlocked, a detail forgotten until after retrieving the newspaper, and he walked in as if the house still partly belonged to him. Eleanor, we need to talk right now, Dean said forcefully. Mia and I were having breakfast in the kitchen when his voice echoed through the house. Mia immediately turned pale. Stay here, I whispered to her, but she shook her head. I am not leaving you alone with him. Together, we stepped into the living room where Dean stood in the center like an enraged bull. His eyes were bloodshot and red, and his clothes looked like he had been sleeping in them. How dare you, he started furiously. How dare you call the police on your own son? Dean, lower your voice and you need to leave now. I am not going anywhere until we settle this. The police came to my house last night. Eleanor, right in front of all my neighbors. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? As humiliating as being slapped by your own son on your birthday. That was different. That happened in private. This ruins my reputation, my job. Mia stepped closer to me. Dad, you need to calm down. Dean turned to her with a fury in his eyes I had never seen before. You are part of the problem. How can you side with her against your own family? She is my family too, Dad. Not in the same way. We are your real family. She is just what? I interrupted, feeling a strange calm wash over me. Only the woman who has paid your mortgage for 3 years. Only the woman who covered Mia's education. Only the woman who saved you every time you made a financial mistake. Dean turned toward me, and for a moment I thought he might strike me again. But then he noticed that Mia was recording with her phone. Mia, stop filming. No, I said. I told you to stop. And I said no. Dean moved toward Mia's phone, but I stepped between them. Do not touch my granddaughter. She is my daughter. She is a young woman who consciously chose to live free of violence. I am not violent. You provoked me, pushed me into this. The words came out before he could stop them, and I saw the moment he understood what he had revealed. Blaming me for his violence was admitting that he had been violent. I want you to leave, Dean. I will not leave until we sign some papers. I have talked to a lawyer who says I can contest your will if necessary. The air in the room thickened like molasses. Mia let out a small, stifled scream. Contest my will mentally. Yes, you are making irrational choices, cutting off financial support for your family, changing your will out of spite, turning Mia against her own parents. A judge could decide that you need supervision. I walked calmly to my study and came back with a thick folder. I placed it on the coffee table and I started pulling out the documents. Dean, here is a copy of the deed to this house. It shows that I bought it with Harold in 1983, that it is fully paid off and completely under my name. I took out more papers. This is a copy of my original will, where you were supposed to inherit the house and most of my assets. Even more papers followed. This one is a copy of my new will, where Mia inherits the house when she turns 25, and you inherit nothing. Dean remained silent, staring at the documents. This, I said, holding up the stack of papers, is a full record of every money transfer I have made into your account over the last 3 years. 3,200. The money I saved over 30 years of teaching. Mom, what is this? I asked, pulling out the last document. It is a restraining order, effective immediately. You cannot come within 100 meters of this house. You are not allowed to contact me directly and cannot access any of my financial accounts. Dean looked at the paper like it was a snake. You cannot do this. I already have, I said firmly. I am your mother. You are a man of 45 who hit his mother because you wanted her house and money. Sharing my DNA does not give you any rights to my property or my body. Mia had stopped recording and was now quietly crying. Dean looked at her, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the man he might have been, confused, hurt, lost. Mia, come home, please. We can solve this as a family. Mia wiped away her tears and spoke in a voice that sounded more mature than any of us expected. Dad, family is not about violence. Family does not threaten. Family does not extort. For years, I have watched how you treat Grandma, how you talk about her money as if it belongs to you, how you make plans for her house as if she were already gone. Mia, you do not understand the whole situation. I do understand perfectly. I know that Grandma worked for 30 years to save the money you spend without gratitude. I know she never asked for anything in return except respect. And I understand that when she finally said, "No, you hit her," it meant everything. Dean was silent for a long moment, staring at his daughter as if seeing her for the first time. Mia, if you stay here, I will not pay for your college. It is already paid, Dad. Grandma set up a trust. Dean turned to me with disbelief in his eyes. What else have you done? I protected myself from someone I thought would never hurt me but did anyway. Dean walked toward the door but stopped and looked back one last time. "This is not over, Mom." "Yes," I said calmly. "It ends here." After he left, Mia and I stood quietly in the living room. Through the window, I saw Janine peek over the fence, clearly worried by the raised voices. "Grandma," Mia finally said, "I did the right thing by choosing to stay with you." "My dear, you chose dignity over dysfunction, respect instead of manipulation. You chose genuine love rather than conditional affection. And what about Dad?" I glanced out the window where Dean's silver van was disappearing down the street. "Your dad made his choices long ago. Now he has to live with the consequences." That afternoon, Patrick Monroe arrived carrying the signed copies of the restraining order. Mia was in her room doing homework while Patrick and I sat in the kitchen reviewing the final details. "Eleanor, how do you feel?" It was a simple question, but it took me a moment to answer honestly. "Free," I finally said. "For the first time in years, I feel completely free and a little scared, but more free than frightened." Patrick smiled. "That, Eleanor, is the very definition of courage." That evening, as Mia and I were preparing dinner together, my phone rang. It was Janine. "Eleanor, my dear, can you and Mia come to dinner tomorrow? I have invited some friends from the book club. I think it is time for you to go out more, to remember you have a community here." I looked at Mia, who nodded eagerly. "We would love to, Janine." After hanging up, Mia asked me, "Grandma, do you think Dad will ever change?" "I do not know, sweetheart, but it is no longer my responsibility to find out." And for the first time in 45 years, that statement felt entirely true. 3 months later, the Saturday morning arrived with the kind of golden light that Harold used to call the light of hope. I woke up in my own bed, in my own home, without the familiar burden of anxiety pressing on my chest. For the first time in many years, I did not wake up wondering which financial crisis Dean would have to solve, which lawsuit I would need to address, or what part of myself I would need to give up to keep the family peace. From the kitchen, the sound of Mia preparing coffee reached me, a morning ritual we had established over the last few months. At 17 years old, my granddaughter had become the most thoughtful housemate I had ever had, far more considerate than Dean had ever been, even as a child. "Good morning, Grandma," she greeted me as I entered the kitchen. She was wearing jeans and a T-shirt from the library's volunteer program. Her hair was tied back in a practical ponytail. "Coffee, please, dear," I said as I sat down at the kitchen table, the very same table where Dean had confronted me for the last time. I watched Mia move around the kitchen with the quiet confidence of someone who had finally found her place in the world. In just 3 months, she had blossomed in a way that broke my heart, thinking about all the years she had spent feeling tense in her own home. "What do you have planned for today?" I asked her. "I have a shift at the library this morning. We're organizing the summer reading program. Then Sarah and I are going to the movies." She paused as she poured coffee into my favorite cup. "And you?" "I have my writing class this afternoon at the community center, and Janine wants us to go to the farmer's market afterward." Mia smiled warmly. "I like seeing you busy again." Busy was a simple word, yet it captured something significant. For years, my days were consumed by worries about Dean, managing his issues, tiptoeing around his moods and financial demands. Now, my time was filled with things that truly mattered: teaching writing to adults at the community center, volunteering in the literacy program, spending moments with friends who genuinely wanted my presence rather than my money. "Have you heard anything about Mia?" She started but stopped abruptly. We had an unspoken understanding to avoid mentioning Dean unless absolutely necessary. "Honestly, that is fine," I replied. And it was true. In 3 months, Dean had tried reaching me exactly twice, both times through lawyers exploring the possibility of contesting the new will. Patrick handled those inquiries with professional efficiency, and both attempts proved futile once it was clear I was fully competent, mentally and legally, and all my decisions had been made with proper legal counsel. That afternoon in my writing class at the community center, my students worked on an exercise about moments of personal transformation. As I walked through the room, glancing over the first drafts they had written on their papers, I was struck by how many had chosen to write about moments when they finally stood up for themselves, leaving behind harmful jobs, ending toxic marriages, and setting boundaries with manipulative family members. Mrs. Hastings, said Marza, a woman of 60 who had returned to school after decades as a homemaker. Could you please review this for me? She handed me her essay about the day she told her adult son she would no longer give him money to support his addictions. The similarity to my own experience was unsettling, but also comforting. It seemed many mothers reached a point where love had to involve boundaries. It is incredibly powerful, Martha, especially this line. I realized I had confused enabling with loving and sacrificing with caring. Marja smiled sadly. It took a long time, but I finally understood that I was not helping him. I was slowly destroying him, and in doing so, I was also destroying myself. After class, while I was putting away my materials, Marza approached me. Mrs. Hastings, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, I replied. Do you ever regret setting those tough boundaries? The question stayed with me as I drove home. I did have regrets. There were times, usually late at night when the house felt very quiet, that I wondered if I had made the right choices. I often imagined how things might have been if Dean had responded differently to my boundaries, if he had picked respect instead of bitterness. Yet I thought about Mia thriving without the constant tension from her previous home. I reflected on my bank account, now steady after years of slow financial bleeding. My days were filled with activities I chose rather than crises I had to manage. No, I did not regret. That evening after dinner, Mia and I sat on the back porch watching Harold's roses gently sway in the soft afternoon breeze. Mia was reading for her English literature class, and I was going through thank you letters from the literacy program. One letter stood out to me. It was from Isabella, a young mother of 28 who had returned to finish her high school education after years of discouragement from a family that believed women did not need schooling. Dear Mrs. Hastings, I read aloud, thanks to the scholarship you sponsored, I was able to complete my general education diploma last month. My 8-year-old daughter attended the ceremony and afterward told me she wanted to be like me when she grew up, someone who never gives up on her dreams. I have never been more proud of myself, but more importantly, I have never been more hopeful about the future. I carefully folded the letter and placed it on the table next to others that had come in. I had been keeping little reminders that the money, which had once flowed endlessly to Dean's demands, was now creating genuine waves of positive change in the world. Good news? Mia asked, looking up from her book. The best news. Isabel finished her sentence. Mia smiled. That is the single mother you mentioned, right? The one who wanted to become a nurse? Yes. She will start the nursing program this autumn. Grandma, can you realize that you are like a secret champion? All these scholarships, donations, people whose lives you are transforming, and most of them do not even know your name. This remark made me laugh. I prefer it this way. True gratitude is quiet. Unlike fake gratitude, which is loud, performative, and comes with expectations of more help in the future, real gratitude is different. It is personal and comes without any demands. Mia closed her book and looked at me thoughtfully. Do you think Dad ever gave you real gratitude? That was a question I had been avoiding, but Mia deserved an honest answer. When he was little, yes. When his father died and I worked 2 jobs to keep this house, there were times he seemed to truly understand what I was sacrificing. But at some point, I paused to find the right words. At some point, my help became something he expected instead of something he appreciated. When did that change? Gradually, so gradually that I did not realize until it was too late. The first time I asked for gratitude, he behaved as if it were rude of me to expect it. "I am your son," he said. "I should not have to thank you for taking care of your family." Mia frowned. "But you were not responsible for caring for her family. That was her duty." Exactly. Yet somehow I had allowed those boundaries to blur. I had made their well-being my responsibility and my own well-being no one's concern. A week later, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Lisa. "Eleanor, could you please talk to Mia? She is not answering our calls, and tomorrow is my birthday." The request caught me off guard. In 3 months, it was the first time Lisa had reached out to me directly. Mia is old enough to decide whom she wants to speak with, but we are her parents. Yes, you are. But being a parent is not a title that automatically grants access. It is a relationship that must be nurtured and maintained. "Eleanor, please, we just want you to come to my birthday. It is a family celebration. Dean will be there." A pause. "Yes. So, do you understand why Mia might feel uncomfortable? That was months ago. Things have changed. How have they changed?" Another longer pause. "Dean is attending therapy." The news surprised me. Therapy for anger management and family therapy. We want to fix things. It was the first time in many months that I had heard something from Lisa that sounded like genuine hope instead of manipulation. However, I also understood that therapy only succeeds if the person truly wants to change, not just avoid the consequences of their actions. "Lisa, I am glad to know that Dean is seeking help, but Mia must make her own decisions about when or if she is ready to reconnect. Could you at least tell her? I will mention it, but I'm not going to pressure her in any way." That evening during dinner, I told Mia about Lisa's call. "Therapy?" Mia asked, with a look that mixed hope and doubt. "That is what your mother said." Mia remained silent for a long while, pushing her food around the plate. "Grandma, do you think people can really change?" "I believe people can change if they truly want to and are willing to do the hard work that change demands. But I also think change must come from within. It cannot be forced by outside consequences. What do you think I should do?" "I think you should do what feels right for you. If you want to give your dad a chance, that is fine. If you are not ready, that is also fine. And if you decide you never want to try, that is fine too." Mia nodded slowly. "Would you come with me if I decide to give it a try, dear? The restraining order means I cannot be there. In the same room as your dad?" "Oh, right." He paused. "Could you possibly cancel the restraining order for just 1 day?" It was a request I had not expected. To cancel the restraining order would mean trusting that Dean had truly changed, not merely pretending to be different just to get close to Mia. Let me think about it. That night, after Mia went to bed, I sat in Harold's study with a cup of tea, looking at the photographs on his desk. There was one of Dean when he was Mia's age, smiling, hopeful, with his whole future ahead of him. He had been a good boy, really responsible, affectionate, and protective after his father's passing. When exactly had he turned into the man who had hit me over money? My phone rang. It was Patrick. "Eleanor, I hope I'm not calling too late." "Not at all, Patrick. What's going on?" "I got an interesting call today from Dean's lawyer. Apparently, Dean wants to arrange a meeting with you." "For what purpose?" "To apologize formally. His lawyer says you have been in therapy and Dean wants to make amends as part of his recovery." "What do you think?" Patrick sighed. "Honestly, Eleanor, I have seen this before. Sometimes it's genuine. Other times it's just another form of manipulation, using therapy and recovery language to regain access to people who have set boundaries. How am I supposed to tell the difference? True change is shown through actions over time, not through words in a single moment. Genuine transformation remains steady and does not expect anything in return. After ending the call with Patrick, I stayed awake late into the night, reflecting on forgiveness and boundaries, second chances, and self-protection. In the end, I reached a decision that surprised me with its simplicity. The next morning, Mia and I headed to the farmer's market with Janine. As we strolled among the stalls, selecting ripe tomatoes and fresh flowers, I shared with Mia the details of Patrick's phone call. "What did you tell him?" she asked. I explained that I was open to hearing what Dean had to say, but only under specific conditions. "What kind of conditions?" she inquired. I answered that the conversation had to take place in a public setting, with Patrick present as a mediator, and with the clear understanding that listening does not mean forgiving, nor does an apology mean things will return to how they were before. Mia nodded thoughtfully. "The restraining order stays until there is solid proof of real change, not just empty words." I agreed that this was fair. That afternoon, while Mia volunteered at the library, I sat in my backyard with a new thank you letter in hand. It was from a 50-year-old man who had recently learned to read through the literacy program. "Dear anonymous donor," the letter began, "I will never know your name, but I want you to know you changed my life. Yesterday, I finished reading my first entire book, The Giver by Lois Lowry. I cried when I finished, not out of sadness, but because I had never experienced the true power of words before. Now I comprehend why people say reading sets you free." I carefully folded the letter and placed it with the others. Within 6 months, the money I contributed had helped 12 people learn to read. It had also funded 5 college scholarships and provided emergency aid to 3 families dealing with medical crises. This was the same amount of money that had flowed to Dean for 3 years without creating any lasting positive impact. Now the funds had touched dozens of lives in ways that would resonate for generations. When Mia came home from the library that afternoon, she found me watering Harold's roses. "Grandma, do you know what I decided about Mom's birthday?" she asked. "What is it?" I replied. "I'm going to go, but only for 1 hour, and only if you're willing to come pick me up if things get difficult." "Of course, dear," I answered. "And about meeting Dad, I'll listen to what he says, but I won't promise what comes after." Mia smiled and said, "That sounds wise." That evening, while we cooked dinner together, Mia asked, "Grandma, are you happy?" It was a simple question, yet it took me a moment to answer because I wanted to be completely truthful. "Yes," I finally said. "For the first time in years, I am truly happy, even without Dad in your life, especially without Dad in my life, as he was for so many years." I mistook keeping the peace for being happy. I confused avoiding conflict with love. However, true happiness cannot be built on fear or guilt or obligation. And if Dad has genuinely changed, then maybe we can discover a new way to connect, one based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. But if he has not changed, I will continue to be just as happy as I am now. Mia smiled and hugged me. "I love you, Grandma." "And I love you, darling." That evening, while Mia was doing her homework and I was reading in the living room, I looked around my house. My home, finally and completely mine again, and I realized something. The slap that had broken the silence was not the end of my self-story. It had been the beginning, the start of a life lived on my own terms. It was the start of relationships built on mutual choice instead of obligation. The beginning of generosity flowing from abundance rather than fear. And as I listened to Mia softly laugh at something in her book, I knew I had made the right choices. Not the easy choices, not the expected ones, but the right ones. That night on my bedside table, I placed 2 photographs side by side. One of Harold and me on the day we bought this house, young and full of hope, and a recent one of Mia and me in the garden taken by Janine the week before. 2 generations of women who had discovered their strength and a new way forward. The house had finally become a true home once again. Silence was no longer something I dreaded breaking, but a choice I made deliberately. In making this choice, I discovered my own voice.